Hi, my name's Joe, and welcome to All New Releases. This is a series in which I take you headlong into the Steam All New Releases category and we spin the wheel, see what we can find. I've kind of done this series aware that quite a lot of content gets lost in the deluge of new games and software that appears on Steam on a daily basis. So with that in mind, episode 1 today, we'd like to have a look at a game called Evangeline, which is the second release by a little outfit from Louisiana called Raconteur Games. Shall we get started? So what of Raconteur Games? Well, their first game, Close Order, was an arcade shooter which was released last year, which has been followed up this year by a completely different beast. So Evangeline is a first-person story-driven game built in Unity engine. It's available for £5 or $7 over in the US, and it's available on Steam and itch.io with a view to coming to more platforms soon. The game seeks to tell a short story of love and loss. Some of my favourite games are walking simulators, to give them that reductive title, and Evangeline nestles firmly in with that crowd. On TIG forums, Nicholas Laborde, founder of Raconteur Games, cites the Chinese Room games, Dear Esther and Gone to the Rapture, as influences, as well as the Fulbright company's very well received Gone Home. Raconteur Games got some coverage on Reddit as well after posting a gif of the game's core mechanic, that colour guides the player through the game. They also got a bit of local news coverage to talk about their game. So what of the game? Well, out of the box there's the option to play in VR mode, which I sadly had to forego, lacking £500 to drop on VR tech. You can see how the game was also tailored to accommodate as wide an audience as possible, with all of these accessibility features. So the Reddit thread that I saw even puts out a call to colourblind players to help with the playtesting. I have no experience or knowledge of colourblindness myself, but I did try a couple of the different settings and couldn't see any obvious difference between the modes. As I said, I'm not the target audience for that. It's also worth noting that the game comes with a separate soundtrack that's available. That's got 14 tracks from the game, composed by Ari Fisher. The actual substance of the game is in its details, and the game takes place entirely within this cul-de-sac you see here, and a house. There are letters, journals littered around the street, which will give you brief insights into the lives of those who share the street. It's the kind of vignettes that you might steal from interaction with your own neighbours, but it doesn't really inform the main story thread. And if you were to ignore the extraneous bits, you could tear through this game probably in about 3 minutes if you were so inclined. It takes place over a series of days, in which you go through the mechanisms of suburban life. Read the paper, put the bins out, open the mailbox. Here's where the unique selling point of Evangeline plays out, as your objective is often indicated by the saturation or desaturation of colour on the screen. Look towards your objective and the screen will fill with colour, but if you take your eye off the ball too long, the grayscale starts to seep back in. This mechanic speaks to the brief moments of purpose that tend to break up the mundanity of day-to-day life. While central to the game, the implementation is a bit scattershot. Occasionally the screen would burst into colour with me not entirely sure what I'd done to warrant it. The game's also a bit rough around the edges, and although the modelling is to a high standard, there were some elements of the UI that detracted from the game's overall polish, such as reading letters. I'm also not sure if I'm meant to be able to read this text clearly or not, but at higher resolutions I did have to squint. With regards to the story, there's a lot of the developers wearing their hearts on their sleeve here. A lot of direct address to the player, and towards the end of the game it even implores you to pick up the phone and call someone to tell them that you love them. My phone wasn't immediately to hand, but I did get into the spirit and I yelled it downstairs to my wife instead. I don't know if she heard. On the TIG forums, Nicholas talks about how the idea came about after losing his grandfather late last year. He put a team together and this game was the result of about 9 months production. So as Nick says on the TIG forums, my goal is to help anyone who plays the game appreciate their loved ones while they still can, so that they don't have to go through what I went through. In an email I received from Nick, he said that the game was available on Raconteur's website as a kind of early access title in January, and the final price was informed by those early testers. who were asked what they thought the experience was worth. For my money, I feel the game's a bit too brief for the £5 I spent on it. But here we have a very personal work which I hesitate to criticise for its price point. I mean, this is the same conversation that kept popping up around games like That Dragon Cancer. That's a deeply introspective story about losing a child to cancer, where the developer criticised Let's Players for taking revenue away from what he spent months designing, a real labour of love. So, while I can't wholeheartedly recommend Evangeline, I do appreciate the sentiment. I appreciate what they tried to do, and I do look forward to seeing what Raconteur games produce in the future. Anyway, that's the end of this episode. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll be back soon with another episode of all new releases. See ya.